beach is located on First Nations Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, the Oji-Cree, the Dakota, the Dene, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties made on these territories. We dedicate ourselves to move forward with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration to make Manitoba an inclusive and accessible place for everyone who lives here.
Be it resolved that the agenda for the November 8th, 2023 special meeting of council be approved as per the following additions. Addition, Fire Chief October Report. Addition, Bylaw Animal Control October Report. Addition, Food Cupboard Privacy Request. Addition, Notice of Public Hearing. Addition, Public Works Vehicle Report.
Can I get a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Jarvis. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Kozlowski. All in favor? Carried. It's going to be one of those nights, right?
Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the October 25th, 2023 regular meeting of council be approved as circulated.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Houle. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Gendron. I trust everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes of October 25th. Are there any questions, comments, points of discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that that council approves the accounts payable listing being check number 22115 to 22155, inclusive of checks, electronic payments, and payroll issued in the amount of $163,921.19.
As circulated.
As circulated.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Houle. Seconder, please. Councillor Gendron. I trust everybody had an opportunity to look over the payroll, accounts. Any questions, comments, points of discussion? Councillor Kozlowski.
Yeah, just a question. Are we recovering anything for the animals that are boarded for whatever time they are boarded for?
The only time, so if there is an invoice that's issued, I believe policy is that they do have to pay the invoices prior to the release of the animals. If nobody picks up those boarded animals, we absorb those costs.
And what happens with the animals? They're euthanized or?
I believe there are options that they're, so that's animal control realm. Normal process is they are either euthanized as a last resort, but if there is no homes or adoption of sorts, and we do not recoup the costs of boarding for an adoption. It's so if he is able to find placement, great. If not, they're euthanized.
Thank you.
I also wanted to bring to people's attention 22142. There was $46,000 that went to Eddie's Gravel. That's DFA, so we have to show it as an expense, but that is a DFA claim, so we're going to be getting that reimbursed once the DFA claim is finalized. And the last entry also for the asphalt work at $34,3200 is also a DFA claim. So hopefully we'll be getting reimbursed for those fundings. Councillor Gendron, you had a question.
Just a comment. When the time is available, if the CAO could possibly just share with all of council the procedures for animal impoundment so that it's clear why we're seeing the charges that we're seeing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Further questions, comments, points of discussion about the payroll or accounts payable? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Carried.
Bylaws, item 7.1 for council discussion. Bylaw 09-2022, water and sewer utility regulations.
I trust everybody had the opportunity. We have both the 14-2003 and the 09-2022 bylaws in terms of sanitation and water and sewer utility report that's been with us, I think, for the last month or so. So I trust that people have had an opportunity to look through both of these bylaws. This is just an initial looking at. Certainly our CAO and our Public Works manager is going to be looking at it more fine-tuned in terms of some of the requirements, but I was wondering if people had any comments or questions about these two articles. Councillor Jarvis first and then Councillor General.
The sanitation one, 14-2003, that's the first time it's appeared though, right?
Correct.
Right, yeah, so, yeah, this is the first time we've seen this one.
That is correct, and that is because generally the wording of sanitation would refer to garbage, not sewer. So.
Councillor General.
You partially answered my question, which was that I was just wondering if our Public Works manager has had a chance to review these and has had the opportunity for input. He's the one who is going to be leading the charge on work that's done with this, so I'm just hoping that.
Yeah, I think
You don't
that
have
the
to-
process, well, actually, our CAO can speak to the
Yeah,
process.
so what's happening at this point, there's several regulations that are gonna be amalgamated into a utility management bylaw, which is gonna govern things going forward. So, as we pointed out, it's just as of recent, we looked at a 2003 bylaw called sanitation, which normally would have fallen off the radar under dealing with low pressure sewer. We do have some policies that are making reference to the utility and dealing with water main breaks and those types of things. And so what we want to achieve is encompass all of our policies, all of our bylaws under one process called utility management bylaw that only deals with the utility. And so bringing this forward to council is more or less, from an administrative perspective, both the works manager and myself are still reviewing and drafting a bylaw in place. What we do want to just have this conversation with council is if there is, especially for myself as not having a history within the community, if there are items that you feel are not being addressed that we should be addressing at this time. Has there been other problems that have surfaced that I may not know about that I can address with this bylaw at that time? So it was more of just that discussion from that council level. It's certainly not up to council to draft the bylaw, but we want to make sure that we're covering any concerns that council has prior to bringing a draft bylaw for review, so that we know what we're addressing all at once.
Councillor General.
Yeah, something that I do know that, not with current staff, but had been a bit of a problem at one point, in an emergency situation when the town has to enter somebody's property. I would appreciate if the bylaw included that there be an attempt to knock on the resident's door to advise them that they're there, or some sort of notification, nothing formal, but that an attempt be made so that there is no surprise by the homeowner when they suddenly look out into their yard and work is being done.
Okay. I also wanted to, I think I mentioned this to you already, Sharon, 4.1, where it says no person shall turn on off water to any premises or open and close the tap or tamper with a curb stop. I think that needs to be a bit more clear because a lot of our cottagers do shut off their water, but this is in regards to the curb stop and not being able to tamper with the curb stop. So I think that might need to be a bit more clear.
Okay.
In terms of how that's, I like that it is including 5.1.7 in terms of not directing any weeping tile, rain, groundwater, or sump pump discharge into the beach sewer system. I think that's something that a lot of our taxpayers aren't familiar with. And that makes me think that when we have a document that we can go forward with in terms of our readings, that it would probably be really helpful to do some education with our community in terms of how the water, wastewater systems work and what they can be doing. And Councillor Jarvis?
I guess 3.4 right through to 4.2, because I agree with the 4.1 that we need that, but I think our fines are way too, we're talking about water and wastewater. And for somebody to, and they're using words like omit, violate, neglect, refuse, or fail to comply, obstruct, or interfere, and we give them a minimum $500 fine and maximum $1,000. And I checked with the city of Winnipeg, and their first offense, the maximum is $50,000 fine to touch with the water.
I think that we're limited by the municipal.
I think that, but I'm saying I think we need to look at that. This is something that, I mean, we've been battling this thing, especially the wastewater, you know, and we're discussing certain situations where people are taking upon themselves to redirect water, et cetera. Then we need to take a look at how we fine people.
So
Like a third offense in Winnipeg is $250,000 fine. Like we're way behind that.
So to be clear, bylaw 9-2022 is not the basis and the foundation of the new bylaw, because there are a lot of gaps and there are things that are just not how it should go. And so when we look at our fines, it's generally, when we're looking at utility rates, Public Utilities Board, our rate by law is a basis to outline some of the fines. Putting the fines in this particular bylaw, we've already been updating our bylaws and dealing with our Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act, which is the bylaw that would list several of the fines of encompassing of all sorts. And so as such, moving forward with that bylaw, having the fines identified in this particular bylaw is challenging, because legislation has changed in reference with recouping fines. And so what we will be doing is having those fines identified in the Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act, because that's giving us the ability to act on bylaw enforcement. This wouldn't carry a lot of weight, so that bylaw is going to be slated coming forward. I know that parking is still being discussed, and there is still some items to be addressed within there, but duly noted that we will look at the fine increase.
Well, the sanitation one includes, believe it or not, a 6-month jail sentence.
But we have no way of,
we're going to jail somebody for a sanitation, but we give them a minimum fine. So I think it's something that we need to look at.
So back in 2003, prior to change in legislation, we had the ability with the Provincial Offences Act, or POV, Provincial Offences Violation. If we put those types of things, then the province, there was, through the court systems, we were able to do our level of enforcement through those court systems. And so legislation's been changing, ever changing, and absolutely rapidly changing over the last 10 years in reference to municipal enforcement and the processes that come through there. And that's why there still are challenges with that, but the enforcement piece is through that. So we do not have the ability, if we are looking at a bylaw that we're saying is going to be under the Provincial Offences Act, we actually have we have to pass a bylaw of the Provincial Offences Act that lists the bylaws that are going to be held accountable under there, but you can't do both. So if it's going to be provincial offenses, or it's going to be municipal enforcement. And so like I said, over the last 10 years, it's been very challenging for municipalities with a lot of the change in the legislation that's happened through here. So this is still based on, and in 2003, you still had the ability to do so. We don't have that ability to look at the jail fines or the jail sentences. There's a whole nother process under the Provincial Offences Act that we have to address. So it's written.
We are going to address that.
We are going. That is without a doubt going to be addressed.
And it'll be addressed through our enforcement bylaw, as opposed to through this
right,
bylaw.
but I mean, and this is like, we've talked about this before with parking fines, et cetera, is that, I mean, it's theoretically a dog with no teeth. I mean, you can give them a ticket, but.
And that's why, so then looking at the tickets and following up on that is making sure that your fines are worthwhile going through the process and that the municipality
Well,
doesn't.
that's why I
lose the money.
suggested, like, when I looked up the city of Winnipeg, I mean, they got a maximum $250,000 fine, and we got a $1,000 fine
Yeah,
for the same offense.
so that's why we've been looking at the enforcement bylaw for the last number of months, is to take a look at that. Councillor General.
Just under 30.2.2.2 under monitoring point, item number
3.2.
monitoring.
Oh, yes?
Monitoring point. Item D, inspecting the holding tank, ensuring the type, size, and condition is meeting Town of Winnipeg Beach standards. So are those standards something that are set now? Do we already have standards, or are we then gonna have to, as part of this, make sure we have standards so that anybody wanting to know what that is referring to will be able to get that information?
Yeah, so back in 21,
Yeah.
WSP, I believe it was 21, and you passed it in 22, or am I lost a year? Yeah, May of 21, WSP did design standards for design and construction of public works. Low pressure sewer is listed in here, and so we do need to be making reference to our actual construction standards and clearly outline what standard document we're referencing to. So there is lots of cleanup. There is so the fine-tuning cleanup at this point is not required of council. What we want to make sure that we're addressing is some of the big infrastructure problems that may surface. So one that always comes to light, and council's opinion, is when we're looking at having a connection, and let's say a sewer connection, and this sewer line, the main line, is running on one side of the ditch, and the property that's looking to connect is on the other side of the ditch. And so it is up to council. It varies from municipality to municipality. More municipalities are being very clear that regardless where the sewer main is located, it is up to the property owner to pay for the entire amount of piping and connection to our main, regardless if it was next to their property or not. So those are the types of things of looking at if there are things that council is very adamant with. Definitely we want to revise and looking at some of the standards and the replacements of these damaged curb stops. I know there is a lot of properties where the curb stop was permitted for whatever reason back throughout the years, not on the property line and actually well into a person's property, and we have to start looking at addressing some of those things. Infrastructure will be failing and will continue to fail, and so I think safeguarding the municipality and recognizing that if there is an issue, and although that the curb stop may be in the middle of someone's property, and that curb stop is now damaged and needs to be repaired, this is the conversation council's going to need to look at, is where's the onus of the responsibility at that point. So it was permitted to be in the middle of the property. That is not okay. It needs to be at the property line, because anything from that, so again, is clearly identifying for existing residents as well as any new connections. It's very clear what the expectations are, and you have a lot of freedoms with a lot of those decisions, but having these things, so that's one thing for sure we need to clearly state. Council may feel that if they have to put a new curb stop in, we're not going to allow it in the same location. It needs to be at the property line. And is that 100% the property owner? Is that 100% the town? Is that going to be a cost share? Those are some of the things that we need, that like moving forward as we draft through, we can make recommendations, but we are not the decision makers of those types of policies, and that's where once you actually get the draft, there will be a lot more looking through, because we're going to be consolidating a lot of small documents and pieces of legislation that are all over the place, as well as incorporate new standard as well as part of the entire management piece. And so that's what you need to be looking at from a government standpoint.
One more thing that I want to make sure is in the standards is the color of the holding tanks being like 8 inches or 12 inches above property grade, because that's one of the problems that we had in the flood. What year was that, 20,
Couple of years,
20?
2 years ago, maybe.
2020,
or was it 2021?
22, year of the
I
flood?
don't know.
21,
Anyways,
we didn't have a flood last year.
When we had that big flooding happening, one of the reasons why our lagoon systems went into crisis is because there's a number of people whose holding tanks are quite low in the ground and they're at the low point of their property. And there was piles of overland flooding, especially on the west part of our community. And so their property was draining into the sewers, into the holding tanks and then out to the lagoons, and it was flooding the lagoons. So I'm wondering if there needs to be some standard around how high the collar has to be above grade.
So
That would be something that you and Joe need to, or our
Okay.
Public Works manager needs to figure out, but as long as we're putting together a bylaw around that, can we make that part of a standard?
So there are standards, however, I guess the issue then comes into play is council's position on the existing non-conforming, right? So if it's already existing, is it mandatory that, and are we running an initiative at that? Like what, is that what we're?
Well,
we're
not
looking-
necessarily, because there are companies out here for, a couple $100 who will extend your collar by a foot or two.
Okay.
So they don't have to have new tanks,
Okay,
but they have to extend the collar.
okay,
Councillor Jarvis?
Yeah, because I think, one of the questions I had, because the sanitation bylaw, when it was written, we had a building inspector that was employed by the town. And now we go through EIPD. So example, when we get into like service connections and some of these things, where do you have to go through EIPD? If you want to get a connection to a service, do you have to go through EIPD or do you come through Public Works?
it's still through, so the building permitting piece is through the EIPD, but some of these don't require, and some of the permitting process, so it is a little bit convoluted because some of the permitting process is still through EIPD, other permitting processes are still within in-house, and so those, like looking through that and having that, that's what we're saying is clearly define where there's no misconception of what is clearly defining at what point is EIPD involved, at what point is Public Works involved. I think that when we look at EIPD, especially dealing with the utility, it may not be the best solution as they're more on a building code level and a not so much sewer and water level, right?
But in section 5, when it says utility service permits are required for every service connection.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who inspects it then? So if you come, if I want to build, say, a house, and then I want to connect to it, how do I go through EIPD to do that, or do I go to the town office and get a permit from the town?
So the connection, so there is a permit right now, there is a permit through, there is provincial legislation as well, we are having an incident right now, in reference with connecting to the sewer. Only a licensed sewer contractor can actually make that connection, and so the list is on this, and you have to register with the province, and so that's mandatory. So normally our utility manager would be on site at the time of the connection. They need to make sure that they've provided us at the office right now, the licensed contractor, so we do have permit fees, and we do have a permit system in place here in-house that is not reflected of EIPD.
Because it says
So-
that they have to provide us with a letter of credit. Okay, and again, how much on the letter of credit, and then it says that the contractor must have a valid business license within the town of Winnipeg Beach. So do
Right.
they have to come and do all the applications here, and then if suddenly it has to go to EIPD, or like,
It doesn't go to EIPD.
So it just
So
stays
it's either, when we look at the permit piece, if it's an in-house permit, it
right, so
stays
Joe
in-house.
becomes, let's assume
If
Joe
it's
becomes the
external,
inspector
it's-
and the permit guy and
Correct.
everything else.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this?
I think I might have a couple still.
Yeah, well, that's good because,
Blah, 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 blah. On page 8, 5.11, grease oil sediment. And I know they're doing this now, and I checked on a couple of the things through EIPD that, I know there's grandfathering, but any new, it mentions about having businesses that are not connected to the town Winnipeg gravity sewer must have an approved grease trap. Like it just kinda, is that something that, I mean, how does anybody get build a building, put in a a restaurant, let's say, and do we need a grease trap or not? If they're on our sewage system, do they still have to have a grease trap? Because I think they need to have a grease trap too. I think, well,
On gravity?
I think the new legislation is that if
And-
you're gonna
and so
build, like,
that's-
I'll put it in, the Salties had to put in a grease trap. They never had one before, and the new legislation, now we might wanna look into that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the new legislation, regardless of the sewer system, is that they need a grease trap. And they've changed a lot since, in the last since COVID, they've changed a lot of the rules. A lot of the, and I know a lot of it was grandfathered, but anybody building a new building now, it's all changed, even including the gas hookups in there.
Yeah.
So, and, hold on.
Next, Councillor Jarvis.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay, buildings that are not connected municipal utility, this is 5.12.3.
5.12.3.
Yeah, page 9. Any building that are not connected to municipal utility street system by the deadline receive quarterly bills. So if you can build, like, and my question is that there's property right now that's built, that's powered, and there's no water to the building. So should we?
So again, this bylaw is not going to be the substance of the new bylaw. And so you don't have the right, we do not have the right to give a quarterly bill to someone who is not connected to the service.
Right, but it says the
So-
very next one, 5.12.5 says approval must be granted, if it's used even as a storage building, the approval must be granted for the project by the town.
So if you're going to connect, then things, so this here, this will not read the same. We cannot bill someone if they are not connected
So
to
then
our
we should delete
system.
this.
Yes, there's gonna be
Right.
this.
Well, that's all I'm, yeah, like, I mean, it's in there. You
Yeah.
asked me to read it
Yeah.
and provide,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
so, and you know and I know that we've got a building built here that's powered. If it is a storage shed, then they need approval. If they haven't got that, then you know what I mean, the thing says that we should build it.
Right, and so the buildings, when we look at buildings and those things, that's managed under EIPD and dealing with our zoning. This is strictly just sewer water. This is just our utilities only.
Right. No, I understand.
Yeah, and so there are a few, Mayor Jackson had pointed out a clause as well. There is verbiage in here that are referencing other types of forms of legislation that will automatically be removed because it has nothing.
So
to
stuff
do
like that
with
will be
the-
deleted then?
If it has nothing to do with the utility, correct.
So if that, okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Any further conversation? Okay, let's move on.
Unfinished business, be it hereby resolved that council approve policy 2023-003 being the grants to organizations policy for the town of Winnipeg Beach.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor General. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to look at the grants to organizations. Thank you very much for putting this together, Sharon. I think you did a great job. And I think it's going to make things very clear to any organizations in our community who's looking for, any nonprofit organizations in our community who are looking for grants or donations from council. It just sort of clears up the process a whole lot. I was wondering if everybody's had an opportunity to review this policy, and if you have any questions, comments, or points of discussion. Councillor Gendron.
Yeah, I had added to the shared notes, it states the organization will keep proper books of accounts. This is on the application form, and expenditures relating to the project and provide a project complete summary on or before December 31st, 2024. Just wondering what the consequences are if they don't, and do we need to add something in there indicating what the consequences may be. And in addition, if they've asked for money for something to do with the Christmas season, and let's say the event happens on the 23rd of December, are we being realistic by saying it has to be the 31st of December? Do we want to add or 14 days after the event, whichever is later, or 21 days after, whichever is later? so that those that are late in December, it gives them some time to get information to us.
Okay. I don't know that if an organization is not keeping proper books of accounts of the receipts and expenditures, I'm not sure that we can then ask for the money back.
Oh, no, that was just
Because
like, you to say
Chances are,
something.
that's not gonna happen anyways,
No.
but we can certainly make note that, any additional grants won't be provided.
Or failure to do so may result in
Mhm.
automatic denial of any future applications. Okay. And is everyone fine with or 21 days, whatever is later, so that those that are late in December, or 30 days, so that those that are in late December gives them some time to get their paperwork together and all of their final receipts in and everything?
I'm not sure I'd wanna give them 30 days.
I think that instead of putting something along, right, like very specific within the policy, is that I could add an additional sentence in there that for extensions, extensions may be granted, right? So, I mean, it may be even a bigger project that started in October that for various delays with contractors. So I think that the request for an extension for data submission
Would be looked at on an individual basis.
may
Okay.
be applicable.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, will be looked at on an individual basis,
Okay.
so that people,
Yeah.
understand that December 31st is gonna be the true deadline, except if there's an exception, as opposed to
Yeah.
that becoming too
Okay.
loose. Councillor Kozlowski?
Yeah, it's all great to say that grants, where they're requesting donations by the end of the year, but let's say if something, let's say, for example, the Legion, the refrigeration breaks down, or let's say the air conditioner breaks down in July or August. So we have a problem with that it's unforeseen circumstances that happen sometime during the year. And they haven't applied that before because they didn't know it was gonna happen, right? So anything can break down in any one of these buildings, and you want their grants in before the beginning of the year. So there should be some kind of leeway there for some kind of an emergency situation that could happen.
What do other
These
council
buildings.
What do other council members think about that?
Again, you might want to have some sort of individual basis in that situation.
Yeah, then I'm not sure that we should make that part of the policy, because the more those kinds of exceptions you put in, then the policy becomes less and less solid. And so what if this becomes our policy, and if there is an abnormal situation that one couldn't anticipate, there's nothing stopping them from approaching council outside of that timeline. Councillor Jarvis and then Councillor Gendron?
I agree with that, because no different than any other business that suffers or any other individual that, air conditioning breaks down. I mean, just because it's maybe a non-profit organization, I mean, that's a factor that happens in every household. Your fridge quits, you know what I mean? So.
I mean, in the perfect world, they've been able to, save a bit of money.
Refinance themselves.
Or save a
Right.
bit of money every month, so they have a bit of a
Yeah, I
savings
know it's
account.
unfortunate, but I agree with you. I don't think we can put it in the policy that way. Otherwise, it just becomes a
It's a non-policy.
fail-safe, yeah.
Councillor Gendron?
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that that then may tend to leave the door open for things like, oh, well, we didn't know in January we were gonna be doing this event. We've just decided we're doing this event now, so now we're asking for money again. And I just think it's.
We have to figure out how to be able to budget for this at the
Yeah.
beginning of the year. Yeah. Okay, any further discussion on this? Are we changing the resolution? at all?
Yeah, so, no, I'm just looking at, so failure to do so will result in not being eligible for future funding.
May. And the only reason I'm saying may is because, let's say, just hypothetically saying, the person responsible for the event skipped town with all the paperwork.
Again,
Do we hold the organization disposable.
Again, that's an exceptional circumstance, and I think that we can be approached in exceptional
But and
circumstances.
that's why I'm saying that it says may result in. Because may will allow us to grant it to those exceptional circumstances. Doesn't mean, but it also allows us to, if it's just that they didn't bother doing it and they're not gonna do it, then they're off, they're not gonna get the next grant. But if it happened because of an exceptional circumstance, that may allows us to give them further, to consider them for a grant next year.
What do you think? What do other people think about that?
So what about the term of failure to do so may result in not being eligible for future funding, except exceptional circumstances may be reviewed? And that covers everything, but it's exceptional circumstances may be
Not just the
reviewed.
fact that
How's
you didn't
that?
bother to submit. Okay.
Okay,
Sounds good.
so if everyone is okay with that, we can accept this policy?
All in favor? Carrie?
Be it hereby resolved that council approve policy 2023-004 being the program refund policy for the town of Winnipeg Beach.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Kozlowski? Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Hu? Again, good work in putting this together. I would assume our rec director had something to do with this as well.
That's correct.
Questions, comments, points of discussion? Everybody okay with it? Okay, all in favor?
Item 8.3, food cycler pilot project. Council discussion?
So we had the presentation last meeting. And you see some of the attached notes from our CAO in terms of whether we should be going forward with this or not. I do believe that the least amount that we could order would be 50 units, is that right?
Correct.
50 units. Certainly one of my suggestions, I really like the idea. On the one hand, on the other hand, I want to make sure it's a program that would get used in Winnipeg Beach. Certainly given that we don't have access to compost through the landfill, and this could be have a huge impact in terms of food, decreasing food wastage, and better for our environment, all those kinds of things. However, we don't know what kind of uptake we would have in the community, so I really like the idea of actually proposing this to the community, informing people about the possibility of this, and having people sign up in terms of their interest, so that we can get a sense of how many people would say, yeah, I would be really interested. If we get response from 10 people saying, yeah, I would be really interested, then I don't think it's going to be a go, because we're not going to order 50 units. If we get 150 people saying, yeah, I would really want one of these in my house, then we know that we'd probably be pretty safe in terms of ordering 50 units. Just to sort of get a sense, the sense of the community feel for it, so we're not going out on a limb. Councillor Hull.
I would almost want to do a deposit style system. Just if somebody's, rather, when you say you're okay with something, have a deposit on these units.
Yeah, do an initial deposit of $20 or $50 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. Councillor Gendron.
So we already have composting itself available to the community through our agreement with Denali Landfill for deposit of compostable materials.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Some people who want to have the option to use compostable material have taken it upon themselves to have their own compost bin or whatever in their yard. I personally don't think this is an expense as a town we should be taking on. I don't think a deposit is sufficient. I think if people want us to coordinate this and the purchase of this at an affordable price, that we go to the community and those that are interested be responsible for paying for the device, the countertop piece themselves.
Okay, I
It's my opinion.
Yep.
That isn't up for debate, it's just my opinion.
certainly agree to disagree on that. What do other people think? What, Councillor Jarvis?
My opinion was Councillor Chandran's opinion before, is that I think, and I concur, I'll agree with Councillor Houle, if they're interested, and we can send out the feelers, if they're interested, that they should put, 10% of their cost down. If we get enough people that are interested to in order to the 50, then go ahead and do it. If not, then I don't think we're in a position we can be stuck with any money.
No, the thing is if we go along with this program, there is gonna be some subsidy from this town.
Granted.
The units cost $500. The company who's doing this would do a discount of $200. Impact
I know,
Canada
I
would be
heard,
doing $50 deduction. We would be putting $100 toward it, and the ratepayer would be putting $150 towards it.
I'm fine with that. But what I'm not fine with is ordering 50 and storing 20.
Oh, no, that's what I was
fine.
saying.
I wasn't fine with that from the beginning because it was the minimum order. Like if the one municipality, if I read it correctly, is stuck with a substantial amount, they've got over $30,000 they're stuck with.
Okay, yeah, no, and that's why I was suggesting that we inform the public that this is available, ask people if they would be interested, ask them to put a deposit down if they're interested, and if we get a good response, we go forward with that. Councillor Gendron was saying something different than that, however.
Well, I agree with Councillor Gendron too, though. That they can have their own composter and that's fine. If there is a legitimate interest from the town, then they can let us know, then we can get that from them.
Okay. There's a lot of people who don't do their own compost because they are older, they don't have the ability to keep, turning it and doing all of those kinds of things, and this system doesn't just take fruit and vegetable matter, it takes meat, seafood, all those kinds of things as well. So it's different than the composting you can do at home, but Councillor Gendron was not saying what you're saying. Councillor Gendron was saying she doesn't think we should do it at all.
No, I'm quite fine with us coordinating it and ensuring that we have people that are willing to pay for it and place the order. I am not in favor of us paying for any cost associated with the ordering and delivery of the products.
Okay. So the plan calls for us to subsidize $100 per unit. Are you okay with that?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Sorry, I was not at the last meeting and didn't realize. No, I'm not okay with us monetarily being out other than cost for administration of coordinating that. So if we must put the $100 out, no, I'm not in favor of this.
Councillor Kozlowski?
I sort of agree, 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other people who have their own composters, but again, this is, and I agree that we could maybe get an interest from the people in the municipality here and go along with that, and also give a subsidy for $100 from us.
Okay.
But put feelers out first, for sure.
And are there some suggestions as to how we would do that? Because I don't think we should just be using Facebook.
Are we supposed to have a letter that is supposed to be going out, or
We
we're
could
letters to
send-
the people? Or that gets shipped out to them, mailed out to them, put in the post office?
Well, that would be something we would have to do.
Yeah, it can be added in that kind of mark. In, let's say, the tabloid, or put something in the tabloid, paper in the Spectator.
Okay, but that's going to be additional costs, right?
Well, yeah. It's not gonna be that much of a cost.
Councillor Jarvis?
Can we put it on the recreational website? FYI, just tag it on there.
Yeah, the only problem is that we have a lot of people in our community who don't go to websites and
I
Facebook.
know, we've had it, yeah, but, I mean, for the sake of doing something, put it on that website, and go fishing and see what you get.
Can we do a robocall?
We can, so, I think that, ideally, to be honest, this would have to be a 2024 initiative.
Yes.
Having too long of a period of time for people to express interest is not optimal. And so the suggestion at this point would be that we do have some time to look at the forms of medium
Okay.
that we want to be looking at. So we can send out the emails, the robocall, the Facebook, the website, and if there are other initiatives that happen prior to this notice going out, as we do know that at some point there will be a public hearing for our vacant and
Yes.
derelict buildings
Yes.
bylaw, as well as a town hall forum once audits are complete. So if those timeframes meet, that could be an item at that point too. And so I'm suggesting that we defer this until 2024. When we take a look at budget processes as well, and provide information at that point. I think that too close to Christmas at this point,
Oh, yeah, I don't think we should. do
I
anything
don't
now.
think that we should be looking for any initiatives from now until year end. So
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
there is time for us to be looking at that. Okay.
Okay, but I think we have enough consensus around the table to at least move forward with seeing if there's enough interest in our community.
And the recommendation in reference with Councillor Houle is a small deposit is, it would not be recommended that to really be counted as an expression of interest. I would think a minimum of $50. It's hard to part with $50.
That's true.
So that means it's serious inquiries, because that is in one of the
Pros and cons.
pros and cons, is that there was a lot of expressed interest until it was time to actually pay for them.
And
then
people
all
that had
the
expressed interest suddenly weren't.
Correct.
So $50 sounds reasonable, Councillor Houle, what do you think?
Yep, 50, even 100.
Okay.
50%?
Pay for the whole thing. Like, you know, their obligation was $100, right?
150, so 70.
Theirs was 150?
Yeah, theirs is 150.
Yeah, okay.
Our commitment is $100
Okay.
offset per unit.
Yeah.
And if we can't generate our minimum, then it's refundable. If we do
Correct.
generate our
Yeah,
minimum,
of
then they
course.
change their
Yeah,
mind, it's non-refundable.
Yep, okay. Agreed.
Okay.
Unfinished business, 8.4, MEC volunteer training update.
So, we'd had this conversation, I believe, at our last meeting, maybe the meeting before, I can't remember because, my memory's working. But the MEC training for volunteers in our community, that is being put on here during the AMM convention, which means we wouldn't be able to attend it. And our CAO looked into it, and they are having somebody come out here again in January, I believe, to redo a training, and or we could get Shelley Napier to do it for ourselves in Gimli. Are people interested in this? Councillor Houle, you're saying yes?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's going to be it would be a helpful training in terms of how to solicit volunteers, get volunteers if an emergency should happen, how to organize that ahead of time, what our role would be in that, what Dawn's role would be in that. Even if we have a big snow event, having volunteers on snowmobiles who can get medications to seniors or food to seniors, those kinds of things. I think we live in a pretty good community, and I think lots of people like to step up and help during those kinds of events, and so it's just a matter of us doing that in a coordinated fashion. So I think it might be a helpful training for us. Do people have a preference in terms of whether we get Shelley Napier to do it with us in Gimli, or whether we get the people from Ottawa, or Shelley is bringing the people from Ottawa in again in January, and we can attend that one? Councillor Gendron?
So bringing the people from Ottawa again is another mass training session for her that would be similar cost to as opposed to, is there a cost associated with Shelley doing it for us? Or is that part of our contract, would that fall under training that she provides under our annual contract with her?
So I have not reviewed the costs associated with either until I knew there was an expression of interest from council. So we can look at this and I can get that information in reference to
I was
cost
just thinking
comparison.
whatever's most cost effective.
Yeah, as long as it's the same information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What are we doing now?
New business.
Yes, we are.
Be it hereby resolved that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the 2-year service contract between the town of Winnipeg Beach and the village of Dunnottar for use of the village of Dunnottar's landfill site.
Can I get a mover, please, Councillor Kozlowski? Need a seconder, please, Councillor Houle. I trust that folks had an opportunity to look at the tentative agreement with Dunnottar. Questions, comments? Oh, surprise, Councillor Jarvis.
Unless I'm mistaken, because of the correspondence, she changed to 2 years, but about 4 of our questions weren't answered from her regarding the compost, access to the compost, and then decommissioning and rehabilitation. She hasn't got back to us as to what.
So, right, so.
There's no cost factors.
So the compost has been provided that if in order for residents of Winnipeg Beach to be able to access the composted material, there would need to be an additional clause in the agreement that the town of Winnipeg Beach would pay for 50% of the screening costs. And so their screening contractor
Yeah, I read that.
was whatever, so there is no cost associated. My recommendation would be that we do not pay 50% of screening costs. I think that, again, we've been talking about composting and accessing of compost. I think that, again, expression of interest, looking through that, I would not recommend that clause. I think that if people are looking for access to compost, there's mediums available for them to utilize, make their own compost versus the burden of the community. I have no idea what the screening costs would be, nor did they.
In 2010, I believe, if I'm thinking correctly, in 2010, the costs were around $15,000 additional
For screening.
for screening. Our portion of the screening, so it would be more than that.
But we've never been involved in this previously.
We have not.
No. Okay, and then about the rehabilitation, one of the things, I believe it was on page 6, number 9, about letting other people use it, but they never give you the reasoning why. Like, and I understand there's emergencies and somebody might need to use your landfill or whatever, but it doesn't, because we're sharing 50% of cost of everything. So if you allow somebody else,
We're not sharing 50% of
I
costs.
thought that when I read that in there on,
So the decommissioning,
well, not decommissioning, just right
Okay.
now on the 2-year
And the
contract.
no,
It's
our
$60,000,
is
correct?
right, but that is not that is a flat fee use that we pay. It's not a 50%.
Right, so my point is if Petersfield suddenly has to use maybe a 1 or a 2 off, that they've got to use their landfill, what if on an ongoing basis, how do they factor in for the cost sharing?
Councillor Jarvis, they already share their landfill with people other than us. So they look at the percentage that we use, the percentage that other municipalities use, and the percentage that they use themselves. And that's how the costs are based. Remediation and those kinds of things, they haven't got the costs yet. That's something that Sharon and I have been talking about today, and when we sit down with them, we're going to be having that
And that's on the
discussion.
cost of rehabilitation and
And recommissioning.
decommissioning.
Yeah.
We are, that clause has been in all of the agreements.
Oh, I
And
know,
so
but they were-
regardless of this particular agreement, we could terminate this agreement and we would still be on the hook of
Oh,
that
I know,
50%.
we covered that.
So we are working at what those costs look like and how that cost is evaluated. We just have not received the information at this time.
Other questions, comments?
This wouldn't be a meeting without it.
Wouldn't. Leave that in my car. Any further questions or comments? Are we okay to go ahead with the resolution then? All in favor? Carried.
AMM convention meeting with the ministers for council discussion.
Okay, I believe that everybody got the information sent out by our CAO in the last week in terms of the mandates to each of the ministers. And there were some suggestions put forward in terms of which ministers we should be meeting with. Some of us had talked about meeting with the Minister in charge of Environment and Climate Change because they are also responsible for parks. And I think it's going to be important for us to meet with the Minister responsible for parks because the park is in the middle of our town. And I think we have to develop a better relationship and do some brainstorming with them in terms of that. I was also thinking about meeting with Justice because we do have problems with law enforcement here in the summer because of the increased population that we have, and our RCMP are stretched to the limit. I thought it might be important to meet with Justice and see if there are other options we can be looking at. And also Ian Bushy, the Minister responsible for municipal affairs, for the obvious reasons, but also if people remember from the last couple of AMM conferences, we've been talking about the per capita issue, which is a problem because municipalities are given grants by the province per capita, which means those of us who have a lower population get a whole lot less funding, even though we still have the same kind of infrastructure we need to be supporting, especially with tourist towns like ourselves, who have an influx of thousands of people over the summer. We have to provide the infrastructure for them, but we only get paid per capita. And also talking about the multi-year funding. And so given that this is a new minister, it might be important to have that conversation. And they're also in charge, this minister's also in charge with infrastructure and lagoons, wastewater management. So it might be good to get on their radar in terms of the issues we have here with lagoons. And I believe one of the other councillors, Councillor Gendron, you had suggested it might be important to meet with health, with the health minister in regards to our primary care clinic here and
us currently covering the expenses.
Us currently
When it's been, we took the initiative, previous council felt there was a need in the community, so they took the initiative and committed to paying the rent. Very shortly after they opened, they expanded their hours. We are paying rent for that is serving members of other surrounding communities. But that's just how Manitoba Health works. You're not going to be denied just because you don't live in the area, but we are covering the rent. And I would like to see that now that it's been a step based on what Premier Canute's sort of mandate was for that minister, making health more affordable or accessible. Would they consider taking over the costs associated with that?
Well, including he also mentioned in the mandate for the ministers to look at rural communities and healthcare accessibility in rural communities. So we can even talk about getting more primary healthcare.
Well, and I think by the town taking that initiative that we have saved the province a lot of the legwork to determine whether or not
What the need
it's
is,
feasible to be having
for sure.
primary caregivers in this town. So
So in looking at each of the mandates that each of the ministers was given, because we were given all that information, then it was up to us to sort of look at, given those specific mandates, which ministers do you think we need to be meeting with that fits within the mandates they were given? So those were the ideas that I had, that Councillor Gendron had. I'm wondering if there are other ideas that other councillors have had.
Yeah, like the one with the
Councillor Kozlowski.
sports culture, heritage, tourism.
And so which particular mandate do you believe that we should be addressing?
Or are they all together? Or are they subdivided?
I don't know. Which minister was this that you were thinking about?
Premier Samard.
Okay, and so which of the mandates stood out for you in terms of what we should be addressing?
Sport, culture, heritage, and tourism. I think each one of those will affect this community greatly,
Okay,
especially the tourism.
so what proposals would you like to be talking to them about?
Building a hotel in this area.
Okay, but that's not to come under sports.
Well, no, but it's coming under tourism. The sports we can give to Carissa,
Okay,
or she can be here at the meeting. Culture is very significant now with the immigrants coming in. I think Steinbach right now has about 27, 28 different languages
Mhm.
they're associated with in their area.
Yeah, for sure.
And a great abundance here is the Ukrainians coming here now. With their, learning English and filling job positions, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't know if this minister takes care of all 4 or 5 of those
So
items.
if you see on the printout that we got the letter of mandate, this minister was asked to look at these particular areas. So the Francophone community, annual investments in the creative sector, and develop policies to end racism in sports, support Manitoba's athletes, look for ways to grow the film industry. Which of those particular areas do you think we should be addressing with the minister?
Cultural, for sure, geographic communities. The tourism, for sure, I don't know if his,
Anybody else?
I think Jean made a strong point with the health,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Parks and justice as well. But I think the health is important.
Yeah, given that's their mandate, then we have something concrete we could be presenting to them in terms of what we've been doing so far and what we'd like to do in the future, for sure. Council General.
We've talked about parks. I think what's really stood out to me in that mandate with parks is making parks more family friendly and usable. Clearly indicates that they want to continue to run the parks, look after the parks. So I think that is why in my comments I stated, we maybe need to look at, we are unique, we are different than other parks, we don't have gates. They are not providing parking in this provincial park for visitors. And these aren't decisions that can be made by the staff that we have access to.
No.
And I just think it would be helpful if there was somebody more senior in that department that we are dealing with, because
Absolutely.
we need to get on board together and get some of these problems solved sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Other suggestions from council? So where do we go from here?
So I can read the resolution. They did have 4 spots available. Normally in past years it's been 3. So in reference with rec and culture, I might suggest, because there are, based on the information that's council's provided, several of them are already actively in place, that for possibly that we look at a project if we're looking for sports and culture. Do we have something specific that we're looking to achieve and address, and we can bring that forward at the next, where we actually have a tangible project that we're moving forward with and what we're looking for assistance with. And make that recommendation with Minister Samard of meeting at the next AMM opportunity.
Yeah, I think we have to come forward with tangible requests and projects. That might make some sense. I also like talking to the parks, so that we can also talk about some of the net zero stuff we've been kicking around here in terms of our rec center and our community club and curling club.
Is that sufficient? Because we don't have a current cultural project that we're working on that they can be of assistance with us, but these other items, we have had several discussions with parks. We have had some challenges with enforcement, and municipal relations is given. And then with our health, we do currently have an active health thing. So I think that staying in the experience of meeting with the ministers is recognizing that we're trying to get that leg up and seek additional assistance for something that we are doing that we need assistance with. So if moving forward though, is looking at what 24 brings when we look at sport, culture and heritage, is do we have something specific we want to achieve? When we look at hotel, we would have to work in conjunction with the parks as we do not have land mass available to look at it as an independent venture. So it is something that in conjunction possibly with economic development, that as we start first building the relationship with the minister of what are we doing and what does our relationship look like with the department now, that could certainly be a conversation as our relationship progresses that encompasses just more than one department for the well-being of this community. Does that make sense? Is everyone good with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
So be it hereby resolved that council directs administration to request ministerial meetings at the AMM convention for the following departments: environment, climate and parks, justice, municipal relations, and health and seniors.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Cool. All in favor? Carried.
AMM convention, RCMP meeting.
Okay, so we had, that was good for the first hour.
Yeah.
So we also talked about meeting with the RCMP at the AMM convention, and I mean, I think we've met with them every year, at every convention, and talked about some of the challenges here, but there's some suggestion that we maybe talk about some of the bigger issues. What do people think in terms of talking about catch and release that's been going on? Councillor Gendron?
The catch and release and the resource for mental health, so members minimize watch duty, absolutely, that's pretty common across, I think a lot of municipalities may be asking about those questions. But I really would like to have an understanding, because we talked about it at a meeting, of how they're saying they don't get backing for off-duty officers. And I think one of the things that we did talk about is particularly when a member is off on maternity leave, they are not paying 100% of that salary. So is there not some sort of partial backing that they can do for the difference between? So it would be interesting to hear what the rationale that they're getting be passed on to us, so we have a little bit of a better understanding of why we are being affected by their internal policies of not being able to backfill.
Well, and also being able to find out from them if there are things that we as a municipality can be doing to support them in some of those issues, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they're not, if that.
Yeah, that they have no control over, that they're just being directed that this is how you have to do it. What, is there some sort of support or pushback that we can be giving to try and help change things for them? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't, I know in the past we've gone and talked about things about us. I think it would be nice to be hearing some things from their perspective and what some of their challenges are that are limiting their ability to service the vast community that they're serving.
And then what we as a municipality might be able to do to,
Yeah.
to support them in that, A, but B, you know, we can also be bringing things forward at the AMM level.
Yeah.
Because the issues that are happening here aren't
Unique to us.
specific to Winnipeg Beach, right? Other comments? What other kinds of conversations you wanted to have with the RCMP?
Be it hereby resolved that council directs administration to request an RCMP meeting at the AMM convention for the following: catch and release, how can municipalities help stop the process, resources for mental health so members minimize watch duty at hospitals, and off-duty sick funding model.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor General. Need a seconder, please? Councillor Kozlowski. All in favor? Carried.
Item 9.4.
9.4 is, yes. I trust everybody had an opportunity to read the letter from Minister Bushy, who is now the new Minister for Municipal and Northern Relations. It was a nice welcoming letter, and I'd like to suggest that we're looking forward to meeting with Minister Bushy and working together with him into the future, and hoping that we can make some positive changes in our municipality. Anybody else have any comments about that? Okay.
9.5, be it hereby resolved that council and CAO are approved to attend the AMM convention being held in Brandon on November 28th to the 30th, 2023.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Huo. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Gendron. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Item 9.6, Legion Letter 2024 fundraising initiatives. So,
Okay. Go ahead.
no, I was just saying, no resolution in place as there wasn't a specific ask, so I'm just bringing that forward.
And you're going to forward them the information about the grants policy?
Hopefully you can do that.
I think that would be a really good idea.
Nine point seven, whereas council received EIPD bylaw 05-2023 for review and comment, and whereas council has reviewed, therefore be it resolved that council for the town of Winnipeg Beach issue the following comments. No comment, unless there is comment.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Gendron. I trust everybody had an opportunity to read this EIPD bylaw. Any questions, concerns, points of discussion, anything you want to comment on? Okay, carried. All in favor? Carried.
Item 9.8, cemetery report, reserved plots for council discussion.
That was very interesting documentation. It was very interesting to read the minutes from 1954 meetings. Did have anybody, we're not making any decisions right now, but a discussion about the cemetery and the cemetery plots. The plots assigned for descendants. Anybody have any thoughts? Any changes, concerns? Councillor Kozlowski.
How many plots can actually go into that cemetery? Any idea?
Not offhand, I don't. The issue we have right now is that we do have someone who is requesting access to the reserved plots, and the legislation that we have doesn't clearly outline the parameters. And so that's why this discussion is in place, is these plots are on reserve. It's just, what does that look like now, and is it open for, Jody had identified in her report, is it extended family? Where does the onus lie? We have no real records of that, so the intent, the background is in order to have the cemetery, a family donated a parcel of property for that cemetery in lieu of these reserved plots. But aside from that, there's really nothing stating how we govern that. And it states, whether it even states at no cost, are they still eligible, subject to the internment fees. Like, there's really a lot of missing pieces, simply because it was long ago, and it probably made sense around the table at the time, but now that we're very disconnected from 1954,
70 years ago.
we don't know what is the decision at that point. So those were some of the key pieces that we needed to look at.
And it was a great idea, family donated a big parcel of land to town for our cemetery as long as they could have their descendants buried there. It's brilliant, nice idea. Just that no other documentation or policies were set up, so we'll have to go back and do that. Councillor Gendron and then Councillor Kozlowski.
Is this an extended family member requesting access to the reserve plot, or is this somebody not related at all wanting a plot and picked one that happens to be on the reserve list?
I can't answer that for certain. Looking at the family tree, I do believe that it is someone who is an in-law of the family.
Okay, so that would fall under the consideration of leaving it up to the family to decide what extended families, and that's why I'm asking.
So,
I was just wondering, is it somebody not related at all? Like, absolutely, like if I were to go and say, can I purchase this plot? I'm not related in any way, even 6 times removed from them, versus somebody who feels they're entitled to the family plot.
True, and so even if we looked at the challenge we have is, even if it's left up to the family to administer, we have no names and contact information of who we could direct anyone to as to who is administrating this.
Or who the descendants are.
So who gets to choose? And so when we look at by marriage and names change, are we asking for family tree? Or are we asking like that? We're just looking. We're needing some form of direction for that.
Like define descendant.
And
gets to define.
it would be beautiful to say it is left up to the family.
But who's the family?
But who's the family, and what's our expectation as a level of ownership that the family said it's okay? That, I think that's the challenge that we have here in this particular circumstance.
So I'm wondering if it is going to be requiring a meeting with some people that we guess are descendants and family members and trying to figure something out with them.
We
In
could be
conjunction.
looking at setting up a meeting.
Because we have some last names from 70 years ago.
Okay. Is there times and dates that work, like where we're looking at with scheduling meetings? What does that look like?
Sorry, just are we dealing with an urgent situation? Is there a deceased individual that they're looking to put in that? I hate to just like, do we need to deal with this right away? Are they looking? Has somebody passed that they want to bury there, or is somebody looking to purchase or have access to a plot as part of their funeral planning?
So the report is silent, so I can't say for certain, as I don't address the cemetery.
Yeah.
So again, I will look at that, and we will table this item.
How about
It's okay?
Or we book a meeting, but if it needs to be moved up sooner because it is an urgent nature, then we look at moving it up sooner.
well, and this is also first heard deferred, so
Yeah,
it's something
first
for
heard
people to
deferred,
be
yeah.
thinking about. And if there's something urgent, I trust that our CEO will
So-
contact us and say we need to make a decision.
So
by this
additional
time.
information council needs, please, is urgent matter. Next, Like, we'll table this. So what information do we need to provide? Council does have to look at addressing what this looks like. So what information do you need from me?
Councillor Jarvis?
I thought we were talking about getting somebody from the family, you know what I mean? Like, if these are plots and there's family members that are still alive in this town, should be somebody that knows what the family tree is. Because I thought I read it that they know the family, that we guaranteed that they would have these spots.
They did in 1954,
Yeah.
but that was 70 years ago. And so part of the recommendation is, and I guess one of the questions.
I think we need to honor that though.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so one of the.
But how do I honor that?
I think we need
How
somebody to
am I-
represent the family. Right now it's a conversation and somebody needs to represent the family.
Right, and so one of the pieces of information that we need from the CAO is, are there some direct descendants?
Well, that was my thing, is that somebody they can represent the family, so we know what we're talking about.
And then,
Because quite frankly, there might not be any family members alive. I mean, that's not uncommon, do you know what I mean? So they could have moved and been buried somewhere else, and now we're holding on to these plots and nobody's ever gonna use them.
right, so that's the additional piece of
Okay.
information
Is
that we need.
Yeah.
If is there some direct family that's still in the community? And then if so, let's maybe sit down and have an initial meeting with them to get information from them in terms of
And I think
their.
we have time, because the ground is gonna be frozen very shortly,
Yes.
so.
We do have
Tyler's
time. We do have
Tyler's not
time.
gonna
There's
put a
no
shovel in the
decision
dirt.
being made today.
Anything else on this issue?
Yeah.
Councillor Kozlowski?
Heck, maybe you can shed some light on my focus, because I am a newbie.
As of me.
That is St. Andrews area, right? How did that get to be Olympic Beaches area? Or was it given to us, granted to us by St. Andrews?
It was given. Plot of land was gifted to this municipality from the family who owned it.
Okay.
That's not uncommon.
No, but I hear, from what I'm understanding, is the cemetery located in the RM of St. Andrews?
Yep, but even then, that's not uncommon by law, they can designate that whatever they want.
St. Andrews.
Some,
Anything south of Ernstead is St. Andrews.
it's not, the Winnipeg Beach Cemetery is, are we not talking about the one on Highway 9?
No, we're talking about the one on Trinstead Road, right across from Strollway.
Home Depot?
What's
Yeah.
the one on Highway
Start-
9?
That's a
Okay,
Polish cemetery.
One
That's-
person at a time, please. Councillor Gendron.
What is the one on Highway, we are not talking about the one on Highway 9?
Okay,
That's by
so,
Carlos.
okay, so maybe that would be another additional piece of information.
Yeah, no, it
that,
is, okay, yeah. Make sure it's clarified, but I believe it is the one that's on.
Kernstedt. We'll just table this for further information.
Oh, this, yes.
It is on Trinstead Road.
Okay.
And so the
moving
only
on.
other, sorry, Madam Mayor, there is an attached policy from 2016. And so if we are looking at, I know that there is things, it's just for council to take a look at that piece of legislation as well. If there are any recommendations or changes that you're looking at, that as we move forward with this, that we can address it all at once. So that's, just wanted to throw
Okay.
that in there as well. Thank you.
The next item, 9.9, petition in support of Bill C-310. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to read this. Now, as a council, we can't be signing a petition. But for people who don't know, Bill C-310 is a bill that folks would like to pass. It's in recognition of our firefighters. So our volunteer firefighters are usually allowed to earn, I think, $2,000 a year. That's not
Tax-free.
That's not taxed. And this bill is to up that to $10,000 a year. That's not taxed. Given that they are doing volunteer, they're paying their own mileage, gas, all those kinds of things. And so certainly, personally, I'm very much in support of Bill C-310. And I would anticipate that most people around the table would be in support of that. As a council, we cannot be signing those petitions, but certainly anybody who's here might want to do that personally. I think that would be fabulous, and anybody who's listening, who's here in the room with us, thank you for sharing your time with us, or who's listening to this on YouTube, if you feel, if you have firefighters in your life that you'd like to support, you might want to sign the petition in support of Bill C-310. Councillor Gendron.
Could we perhaps put something on our website and on our Facebook page to make the public aware of this as well, and giving them the opportunity to sign it as well?
Thank you, good idea.
I'm full of them.
I know. Any other comments about this? Cool. The next is 2024 911 emergency fee increase. I trust people had an opportunity to look at that. There's going to be a fee increase for the 911 operators, and in conversation with Sharon today, with our CAO today, I also thought it might be important for her and I to meet with the 911, management in Brandon, to talk about them being aware of our resources, our emergency resources in this community. And it just reminded once again about how, we had somebody struggling with a heart problem, a couple of years ago. And someone called 911 and they sent an ambulance from Asher to come and respond without knowing that there was an AED 50 yards away that could have been used. So it seems to me that there's just a breakdown in communication in terms of what local resources we have and who should be on the first call list. So myself and Sharon are going to be dealing with that and figuring out who to meet with. But in the meantime, there is going to be a rate increase for the 911 fees, and that will be dealt with at the budget. You'll see that reflected in the budget next year.
Asset management risk.
All right, asset management risk workshop. Did you want to speak to this, Sharon?
Sure.
Thank
So a commitment was made that secured some FCM funding to create a asset management plan. The deadline for Winnipeg Beach was December 31st of 2022. The first initial kickoff meeting did not occur until December 7th of 2022. As such, an extension was requested. We are permitted to have 1 year extension. So December 31st, 2023 is the deadline for us to be compliant with the grant application that was submitted in the past. As a result, one of the components that needs to be addressed, and it's very standard with FCM as well, whether you have a consultant or not, is to really take a look at the risk management piece of our assets. So although we can say, and I can use the example of a sidewalk where we look at budgetary constraints and we say, yes, this asset is at its end of life, however, budgetary constraint, it's low priority. So that's part of that asset management piece, is identifying your assets and where they lie in reference of priority and where they're lying with useful life. The other missing piece with asset management plan is the risk associated with that. So in this case, we say it's low priority, but it's end of life. We also have to identify the risks associated of knowing it's at end of life and knowing it's of high risk end of life and it's a low priority. What are the risks associated with making that decision? And so it is a mandatory, unwritten rule of being mandatory through your asset management plan that this piece does need to occur, and it cannot just be a person such as a CAO or a works manager. It does need to be in a group setting of environment. So it will not just be council that will be assessing risk and identifying risk. There is a staff component as well. And so to make this seamless, we looked at having staff in the morning and council in the afternoon of the same date. As staff is here Monday to Friday, it's up to council to determine what date that was provided works well for them, and we will have staff accommodate that.
We only really have one option because Monday the 27th we're traveling to Brandon.
Except, it could be a 1 to 3 meeting and then leave and go to Brandon.
Drive to Brandon at 3 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not driving to Brandon at 3 o'clock and it's dark at 4:30.
Too many deer.
Pardon me?
Too many deer once you get past.
Yeah,
There'll be deer all over the highway.
No, my vote would be for Friday the 24th.
I think the 23rd, we have budget meeting also.
Yeah.
So we're
It's
really,
council
Okay.
meeting actually,
Friday the 24th
Friday the 24th, okay,
Pat Keller.
and 1 o'clock.
1 p.m.
how long is it, Sharon?
I'm hoping only 2 hours because I got something going on.
So I can schedule, why don't I sketch for noon?
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For noon,
Mhm.
okay?
Is that going to be okay for the facilitator?
That's gonna be fine for the facilitator. Whatever council chooses is going to be fine for the facilitator.
And just a question on that, is in-person attendance mandatory? If weather does not allow me to be driving out, is it something I can join virtually?
I will look into it. I mean, normally it is, in person. There's probably gonna be some explanations, slides. You might not get the full benefit of it. It's not I don't wanna make it seem like it's mandatory for all members of council. We do just have to have council input.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, no need to risk my, like.
No need to risk your
Correct.
life to come to a risk assessment.
And then, and virtually wouldn't benefit anyway, so we won't set up,
Perfect.
arrange a backup. Okay, that's fine, thank you.
okay. Additions, food cupboard privacy request.
Okay, so I trust that everybody had an opportunity to read the information. So thanks to a group of volunteers, we have a food cupboard available at the rec center, which is wonderful. There is some, and it's had a really good response in terms of lots of volunteers bringing food forward, which is great. There has been some concern by the organizers that privacy or lack of privacy might be inhibiting people from using the food cupboard as much as they could be. And so they have made a request to get a privacy screen that we put in front of the food cupboard, and I think everybody here has seen the documentation attached to that, how that would be set up. So I wanted to have some discussion on that. What do people think about putting a privacy screen up there? And there is also a suggestion, privacy screens, our CAO has looked into it, and privacy screen that would be, that would work well, is less than $100, it's $89 or something. So I wanted to have some discussion about that as well in terms of council authorizing the purchase for that to be part of our contribution to the food cupboard. If people think that the privacy screen would be an okay thing. Privacy screen would also be mobile, so we can move it whenever there's an event going on, if we need to. What does council think? Councilor Kozlowski.
Yeah, I think it would be a great idea. I know Evergreen in Gimli uses their back entrance, and that's so people aren't aware of who's going in there, who's being seen. So I think a little more privacy for people that do need this, and they'll feel ashamed that they're going to pick something.
Okay. Other people's thoughts? Councilor Gendron?
Well, I certainly don't object supporting the privacy of it. There is still a need, and hopefully this will help see some change, but there still is a need for the individual to have to walk right across a community center, and for a lot of people who need to be accessing a food cupboard, it can be a difficult decision. This is a small town. People talk. There might be unfortunately, some reluctancy on some people's part who could probably greatly benefit from the cupboard. from using it because they have to go to such a public place. I applaud the initiative, definitely a need. Hopefully this will help, but, you know, there's still, and with the restaurant being there, there's people around, and so there's still that need for, unfortunately, that might deter some people that could really be using it from using it by having to walk clear across the community center. But absolutely, if this is going to help, I think this is going to help somewhat. Definitely in favor of supporting them.
Okay. Councillor Jarvis, Councillor Hu?
No, I'm in favor of it.
I think it's a good idea. I almost wish there was another type of medium where, you know, people, rather than just a screen, like Councillor Gendron said, you gotta walk past everybody.
I know.
I almost wish there was like a suggestion box or something that somebody can put their address on there and say, you know, something. They don't necessarily have to go and take food at that moment and have it delivered or something. I mean, I don't know if they can expand on what they're doing. I don't know.
Good idea, a group of volunteers, if there's some volunteers who wanted to step forward and do that, that would be great, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have difficulty with a location as well. I think it would take a very strong person to walk in there and across the rec center to pick it up.
Yeah.
For sure. Councillor
I
Kozlowski?
think there's also a back door there that they can use, go down the stairs, 3 doors, 3 steps, and open the door. So this way they don't have to prance across the,
But the food cupboard isn't downstairs, the food
no,
cupboard
no,
is...
put food covers on the main stairs, by the stage, I know where it is, and go down 3 stairs and out the door. That way nobody sees.
Might have a problem with accessibility. I don't know.
I don't know, well, you got stairs coming in, right? Other than the ramp, the front. You got 3 stairs coming down.
Well, you know, it's worth a shot, and let's see if that increases the usage. Would we like to go to resolution?
We can, so I understand that council's in support of, as per that, the initiative, approval of council is required, so you are approving a screen being implemented in that area. And I am left unclear if the initial request did not request for council to pay for that screen. However, I did hear inklings that council is receptive to pay for that, so I need some
I
clarification.
would like to highly recommend that council pay for that. It's going to be less than $100, and I think it's the least we can do to be helping out this endeavor. What do other people think?
Yeah, it's also something that if it's not effective or isn't helping, I'm sure that we can, you know, that Carissa, it's not throwing money away. If it doesn't help reach what they're hoping it will, I'm sure we can find other use for it, so.
Okay, so resolution, be it hereby resolved that council authorize the placement of a privacy screen for the food cupboard initiative, and further be it resolved that council authorize the purchase at a cost not to exceed $100 plus applicable taxes.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Kozlowski. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Jarvis. All in favor? Carried.
Addition Public Works Vehicle Report.
Jeez. So, this was information that was...
Did you say that out loud?
Did I? Sorry. This was information that we just received just before the meeting. So I'm not even sure if everybody's had an opportunity to look at it yet. Sharon, have you been able to look through it? Like, let's see, is he making a recommendation?
Without further investigation, I cannot provide
Okay.
a strong recommendation at this time. I do need to discuss the financial aspect with our finance administrator. The reality of the situation is, though, our vehicles are not passing safety. It is a bit of a bind. There really had been a vehicle replacement plan that we can pull from. A lot of the items looking at the scopes of work being needed to do in required certain equipment, and we have purchased such as the hydrovac and various other uses as our public works manager has outlined. The challenge being we are in November at end of year budget, and before we can look at moving forward with something, that's where having a very clear review of the finance and the departmental budgetary control, where we know where the department is. It's challenging to make a strong recommendation, but we do have to replace a vehicle.
Well, and one of the issues is if we don't replace it, then we're spending other money contracting out
Correct.
services need to be done. We're contracting out the hydro vacuum, we're contracting out the dust control, the material hauling, the snow hauling, and that's gonna cost us an arm and a leg as well, so it doesn't make sense to contract all that out. Do we know whether there's a time pressure on this? Like, is it that they can't clear snow until?
So clearing snow is using different, it's the removal of the snow, right? Using the box for the removal of the snow. I mean, clearing the streets, and there are ways around it. It's, I'm not gonna say it's not time sensitive. I think that, looking at where council's comforts levels are at this point would go a long way with being able to expedite a decision. There may be room when we look at the dust control budget lines, and that's where, again, I'm hesitant to make any financial recommendation at this time until we really look at where the department is sitting. That there has been some cost saving measures. There are some lines with some equipment repairs and maintenance that I believe we may not have moved forward with those repairs as a result at the time of budget, and then the information coming out, and then recognizing other things were wrong with the vehicle that, and I believe that this is one of the vehicles that there was some repair and maintenance slated for, but now that it won't pass safety, and the costs that it would require to pass safety are cost prohibited and are not also in the budget, and looking at an older vehicle is taking a look at some of the options.
And we obviously have to, I'm sorry, Councilor.
And that's okay. So we have touched a couple times briefly on the idea of leasing vehicles. I'm just wondering if any time our public works and utility manager is putting forward a report such as this, if in the financing he can also include costs of leasing a similar vehicle, so that we're looking at all of our options. It's not included in this one, just so that we are looking at every possible.
Do you think it'll be possible, Sharon, to get all the available information, including budgetary stuff, for our next meeting, so we can, and then forward that to council so we can make a decision next meeting? Or will that be soon enough, I guess?
We will do our best to get that information in. It is anticipated next week was high on agenda, recognizing some preliminary budget discussions are needed. That is a workload for next week, so it's
Right.
You are having a budget meeting, preliminary discussions prior to the council meeting. So it is anticipated that we can, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are people leaning in a particular direction at this point?
Well, he states it without a replacement. Our only truck that could pull the trailer has a remanufactured transmission and 240,000 kilometers on it. So we do have something right now, it sounds like. So I don't know what the element of urgency is. Is this more of a long-term request? Because if we have something right now that will do the trick to buy us a couple of months, or does he really not think that that's going to last
Time frame?
the snow season?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the time frame on that? In his best estimated opinion? Like, is this report just in response to the vehicle just now not passing safety?
This one's diesel, the second one's gas. 924.
I do seem to recall conversation that, I'll get some additional information with the urgency and what equipment is being pulled by what. Because I believe that truck can't necessarily pull all of the pieces that we need, and I don't know if that was through verbal discussion or if.
And then I guess the other pieces, I know that they do work closely with parks over snow hauling, and what sort of commitments to support through this for if we got a major snow dump. Is there any support available there until we can be in a position to replace equipment?
I also noticed that 2 of the 3 options are diesel and 1 is gas, and I believe the price of diesel is much higher than gas right now, is it not?
Yeah.
And that's not going to change anytime soon, so I think that needs to factor into our decision as the ongoing costs. Councillor Kozlowski?
And where are the areas that they load snow and where do they take it to be dumped? Because most of the times I see they're just pushing it up onto the grass or the boulevards.
True. The snow removal piece is the lowest of priorities for the truck, because that occurs once snow's pushed too high, that causes a visual impediment, or there's just no more room to push snow in a particular area. That's when they start doing the snow removal pieces. But the other piece is with the truck isn't just as much as the removal of the snow, it's being able to carry the other pieces of, like, the trailers and the other pieces of equipment. That's the biggest challenge. And so when we look at winter season is upon us and we look at our hydrovac and we have water breaks or sewer breaks, that's when you use that piece of equipment. And so not being able to have it mobile makes it challenging. I think that might be the piece of equipment right now. He's stating, I think it's the loader or something that we'd have to pull it with.
Yeah.
So.
Is there anything else you need from council on this?
No, we will get, I will get the information of the element of urgency. Has he researched any cost of leasing and what that looks like? We recognize that leasing, if we are leasing a vehicle, it's going to be 5 years or newer. So the cost of that vehicle will increase as well, versus purchasing a used vehicle. So keep that in mind, council. And I will look to see if there is any level of wiggle room based on some of the budget items for the equipment repair and maintenance. I believe our dust control line may have, although it's not optimal, again, having an overage in one line and an underage in another line, it's really the departmental expense that really matters. But there has been some unexpected items that's occurred as well, and so we really need to make sure that there's no room for error with a decision of this cost.
Okay, thank you. Bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Committee reports.
Yes, we have the committee reports now.
Do you want me to read the resolution and then discussion? Or
Oh,
you
yes.
just prefer the- Be it resolved that council accept the committee reports as presented.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Cool. I trust people had a chance to look at the committee reports. There's a couple of comments, certainly with the recreation report. The Halloween party seemed to have been a huge success, a huge turnout, and lots of kids and families came out, seemed to really enjoy themselves. I think we had over 200 people there. It's wonderful to see what can happen in our community when a group of volunteers comes together to create an event such as that, and I really hope that those kinds of things continue to happen. I know there's been lots of people who've been saying we should have more of those kinds of events in our community, which would be great. And in order for that to happen, I guess, volunteers would have to come forward to want to organize those kinds of things. The rec department could certainly support them in a lot of ways, and use the rec center and sort of be the behind the scenes support. But it would be wonderful to see more groups of people coming together to arrange those kinds of events, dances for the teens and for adults and kids and those kinds of things. You wanted to say, Councillor?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend Darlene Scrico and her group of volunteers, and I hope that the community understands that this is a volunteer-driven event, and that's how they happen. Our recreation department absolutely will support, but we don't have a large enough recreation staff to be doing all of these things. And so while there was some wonderful comments put forward on social media about we should do this and we should do that, I just want the public to understand that that is a volunteer-driven event. It is highly successful with support from our recreation staff, and anyone else that has any other ideas, such as a team dance or something for adults. I highly encourage them on a volunteer basis to, if they would like to start coordinating something, reach out to our recreation department for some support, because that is clear proof of the success that a community volunteer-driven event that we are more than happy to support the success that it can have.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It would be brilliant to have more of those kinds of things. And yes, Darlene Scrico and her volunteers just did a brilliant job. And they have for a number of years now. So, big kudos to them, and I really appreciate their work in our community.
Yeah,
Also, Kozlowski.
kudos again to Darlene. I think that was her last year in doing this. So we could be in trouble next year. Some of the volunteers didn't show up this year. Really, basically, I was there. We had about 220 kids, about 289 in total. It was a great night. The kids loved it. Great costumes. They were on the dance floor all night. Greg Onafrichuk was the DJ and did a great job with that as well. And if we want more activities like this, yes, we're going to have to need volunteers from our community to step forward and take this over. So once again, kudos to the staff and the volunteers with the Halloween party.
Absolutely. Two things about pickleball. One is that there's been a problem with pickleball happening at the school, and so I think it would be important for us to sit down with the school, look at the shared use agreement, and come up with some strategies in terms of how to figure that out. I think this might be a role for rec to take. Councillor Houle, you're on rec with me, are you not?
I am, yeah.
Okay, so I'm wondering, would that be something you would be interested in doing with myself, maybe my CA and our CAO?
Yep.
And sit down with the school. I understand they're in a bind as well. the school is, but, you know, they're also a really good resource. And I'd like to be working more collaboratively with them if we can, figure something out around this. For people who don't know, they were hosting our pickleball for us because our pickleball courts aren't great on the upstairs level. It's too small to be able to play pickleball. So the pickleball was happening at the school, and the problem is the people who were the custodians at the school on the Tuesdays and Thursday nights can no longer do that, and they don't have the staff to cover. Our staff could cover, but that's against some school policies as well. So there's just some things we have to work out to try and make pickleball more accessible for folks in our community who seem to really enjoy playing pickleball, which is great. As a stand-in, you know, until we can get that figured out, I believe that there are some folks who are doing sort of free learn to play pickleball events up on the main floor of the rec center, because you can't really have a game there. So people are coming to learn how to play for the first time. And I guess one of the questions that the rec director is posing for us is whether we can or should restrict access to the facility because of pickleball. And I'm wondering if people have a chance to read that and whether you have some thoughts or comments about it. Councillor Gendron.
I didn't quite understand, but now as you're saying it out loud, is she meaning from the aspect of we don't want people running around while the pickleball is flying around? Is that what she means by restricting access?
Correct.
Okay.
So that where the court is outlined on that area, that's there can be conflicting times, I believe, with hockey. I don't know if it's club hockey or if it's minor hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we have other people accessing a different area of the facility.
Mm-hmm.
And if hockey is on, then people want to also look at the windows that go out onto the ice.
Mm-hmm.
But that area is, the court is sort of taking up a big part of that area, and so then that was the question that was posed, and so she's looking for some direction. So there's never, when there's been birthday parties or any other shared event, there's never been any level of restricted access or blocking people off from an area, and so she's unsure of her ability to be blocking off any area of the facility for pickleball.
What do people think?
From a safety aspect, I think she should be, particularly if the people just learning how to play pickleball.
Not ever having played it, what is it that you're hitting? Is it a ball? It is a ball. It's not like a badminton.
Well, you hope it's a ball, but sometimes when you're learning, you miss.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
no,
there
it's
are
ball.
balls flying around.
There are balls flying around. And then I guess another question I have is there a concern of a pickleball ball breaking the glass?
Councillor Jarvis.
It's a plastic ball with holes in it. You'd be hard pressed to get it over 10 miles an hour. I don't think it'll break the glass.
Okay.
And you've got senior citizens whacking it, so more than likely.
Excuse me?
I can whack it, please.
Yeah, more
I'm
than
a senior
likely, you're,
citizen, but
yeah,
pretty strong.
and, you know, I helped outline the course, the actual court. And you're right, theoretically, you could restrict access to the windows. The hockey team is a seniors men's league.
Oh, okay.
3 of the women that played last week, their husband played hockey at the same time, so they got to play pickleball, watch their husbands play hockey. I don't think it affects anything really. I think you're always going to have somebody that's going to object to something, but I think if you can get seniors out there, there was 7 people last week, and apparently they had a lot of fun. If you can get some seniors out there to bang the ball around for a while and socialize and have a good time, I'm all for it.
So in reference to the restricted access then, so it sounded to me that we were looking at trying to block
The
things
window,
off.
but when you saw the court, you can get on any side, all the exit doors, yeah, it's 44
So-
feet long and 20 feet wide.
So we're not blocking.
We're
so
not blocking,
it's-
we're
so-
just, all we're blocking is access to the window, but you can still, on the ends, you can
Yeah.
still see the window. Like take the two center windows out, and you have that window and that window that you can still see through.
So you're not blocking access to the.
We're not blocking access
You're
to
basically
anything.
taking up the space
I
there,
think-
so people can't stand there.
I think in fairness, we're erring in caution, we're just trying to be cautious, and I applaud that. You know, like, we don't wanna make any mistakes, because there's always somebody that's gonna be offended by something.
And that's okay, they
Yeah.
get to be. But I don't think, we're not talking about barriers or anything
There's no
else.
barriers. If you had to go to the wash, and you know what, again, I'm a senior too, but, you know, you're hard pressed to get this ball to hit anybody. Like, if I hit the ball hard, and it hit you in the arm, you might get a little red mark, but that'd be about it. Yeah. It's not like you're whacking a golf
So we're
ball.
not looking for barriers, is what we're
I don't
saying?
think we need barriers.
Okay,
Personally, but I could be wrong. If there's somebody watching on TV and say, I got hit in the eye and I lost my sight, then by all means, phone me.
Wear goggles.
So, yeah.
Could we get better clarification from Carissa as to what she was requesting as far as restricting access?
Yeah, I don't,
Because I'm thinking she's meaning, do we want to tell the hockey players that they can't come upstairs? Do we want to want to put a notice on the door, pickleball, no access to the library? Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking. But if we could get clearer information from her as to what it is that she's meaning about restricting access?
and why
And
she
why?
thinks that might be necessary. Councillor Jarvis?
Barry, do you know how wide a hockey rink is? Top of your head?
No.
Because the court's only 44 feet long, but for sure, a hockey rink. So what I'm saying is
Much
that,
wider than that.
yeah, it's much wider than that. So you're trying to put, like, you could literally put the thing, and you're still, you know, there's tons of room. Well, I don't think we're restricting anything, so.
okay, so there's no, okay,
And we had people show up at the school, and then, you know, I mean, so we're just trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? We're just trying to just mitigate damage, you know? We had people that were looking to play, and so we just afforded them something and hopefully the school can figure out their problem, who knows?
Well, and hopefully myself and Councillor Houle and Sharon can be meeting with them sooner than later.
When you see the court, it'll become crystal clear, like, there's plenty of room.
Okay, so I don't think any restrictions are necessary now, unless Carissa is seeing a problem that we're not familiar with.
And Jean's asked to call to clarify
And so
that.
then she can make us aware of that.
okay.
There's also the fire chief report. And I must say, I was very disappointed to have missed the firefighters ball. I know that most of us went last year and had a good time, and I wasn't, somehow it missed me that it happened. I guess cutting back on my social media and not checking Facebook, I missed the alert. Was anybody else here able to go to it?
I was there very,
I was away for a few days,
Okay,
or I would have gone.
I'm glad you're there, Councillor Houle and Councillor Kozlowski.
yeah, it was a great time, great meal, as always. The place was full
Good.
capacity, lots of beautiful prizes in that. I think we won 3 at our table. Barry's going away to the weekend to a hotel for a free night.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
The Southern
And Carlos won, he was at our table, and who else won? I didn't win anything, Greg did, the minister did.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a great time.
Well, good. I'm glad that some of the councillors here are going. Hopefully next year, maybe the fire department could, send town council a notice in terms of when the ball is, so that we can all participate. That would be great. I also noticed that Randy Arnold has 40 years of service to our community, which is absolutely fantastic. And also Travis Taylor, he said, went beyond the call of duty. Is anybody familiar with what that situation was?
He saved 2 people, I locked the bond and 2 children that were drowning or something.
Wow, brilliant. So I'm wondering whether council would be open to acknowledging both Randy Arnold and Travis Taylor
Sure.
from council.
I think we're still trying to acknowledge our girling people.
I'm not-
I never did.
Well, I'm not talking about having an event, but Any suggestions in terms of how we might do that?
A letter from mayor and council.
Perfect, thank you.
I do have one other thing on the report.
Yes.
When I look back, I have to go back to pickleball, but when I actually
Oh, God.
read how she's written it, is this space an area where we can restrict access to with a question mark? Now it reads to me like she's just saying, is it okay that I'm putting this pickleball court here and people can't look through the window? Not, yeah, to me, when I actually read it with the question mark, Councillor Jarvis, you were there. Does that sound like a reasonable?
I thought that that's what she meant right from
Okay.
the get-go.
Okay, so if
Yeah.
that is what she
That's not
means,
how I read it.
But-
I have no objection to it. She's running an event at the
That's
same time
fine.
as hockey, and they want to watch the game, they can go down on ice level.
And there's room on the
Yeah.
sides.
Okay,
So if that is what it was, I don't
And
think.
you
it's-
witnessed that as well, where the
Yes.
old bingo thing is, and
Okay.
you could set a chair right there
Okay.
and watch.
Sorry.
Okay. Anything else from any of the reports? Oh, did we
Yes.
read the resolution?
yep, all in favor? You put it
No,
on the other
yeah.
one, that's okay, I was watching.
Yeah, we
You're
did it.
good.
I have one more.
I knew that. Thank you. Council agenda.
The finance report, I
Yes.
would just like to comment that it looks like some great headway is being made on us getting caught up on our audited financial statements. So I would just like to thank Tara and the other staff in finance that are diligently plowing through things that they probably never should have had to plow through, and are getting things caught up, and it's looking like we might be able to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief and put this behind us. Hopefully not, within the next year.
Well, put it behind us in terms of having the.
Having it
audited
finished, yes,
statements.
I'm sorry. Yes, putting the paperwork portion of it behind us,
Not
yes.
the dealing with the,
No, not the,
Outcome
what
of
we
the
might
others.
have to deal with some of it, but no, but at least being in a position as a council as to where we know what we're dealing
that's right,
with facts and numbers instead of,
yeah. So
So-
21 and 22 are both with the auditor now.
Yeah.
Which
So-
is fantastic.
yes.
And
it
we're
is.
just working on 23 now, so.
Yeah.
So fantastic. Thank you very much for your hard work, Council.
How close are we to those audits being finished?
That's up to the auditor.
So with 21, there's a preliminary review, we were emailed, just a preliminary report, it's not finalized, and there is, waiting for the weed district, because it's consolidated financial statements, so there's it's not just Town of Winnipeg Beach when we look at our consolidated financial statement, it does take into account other entities as well. And so there is some delay with that. I don't believe that 22, we have checked our emails that we did not receive the audited financial statement from the Weed District for 22. So that is holding some things. Aside from review for 21 and 22, we are hopeful that before the year end we have something to present. So there is a process though, is when we do receive the audited financial statement, the process is council does table it for review, and we do have to provide notice to the public and in reference that the financial statements are available for review before you can actually accept them. So there is a bit of a delay in the process.
So then we have a public hearing?
No, we don't have a public hearing, but we do have to provide public notice that the audited financial statements are available for review. So process is normally we receive them, they are put on the agenda, council tables, we put notice, then they come back to the table to accept. So we're very close. I know 21 is near complete. It's and then we are waiting for some information with 22. So.
Good job. The end is near. Accepting
Favor?
committee reports, so all in favor? Thank you.
Council committee and board roundtable discussions?
Yes. Has anybody attended any meetings in the last couple of weeks that you would like to be reporting on, please? Councillor Kozlowski.
Yes, I attended the Tourism Awards banquet on Saturday, October 28th at Larders. Some of the businesses and individuals, I'll read out. This was also in our tabloid, The Spectator. So the Wish Me Business in Selkirk took home the Business Excellence in Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Awards. It supports adults with intellectual disabilities, which is great on them. Conservation Education Award went to Okamic. Business of the Year with more than 20 employees was the Gimli Film Festival.
Oh, cool. Wow.
The famous Sandy Hook Pier captured the Interlake Tourism Non-Member Excellence Award. The winner of the marketing campaign of 2,500 went to the Gimli Chamber of Commerce. Volunteer of the Year went to Peter and Susan Hallfaber, who have dedicated 15 years to Gimli,
Wow.
which is a great amount of time.
Oh, yeah.
The marketing campaign under 2,500 went to Lockport Community Development Group. The Indigenous Tourism Award went to the Fisher Cree, River Cree Nation. Tourism Member Excellence Award went to Heather Hynum of Second Nature Creative Interpretation in Woodlands. And Business of the Year with under 20 employees went to the Prairie Breeze Folk Art Studio in Balmoral. And last but not least, Event of the Year was Holiday Alley in Selkirk, Manitoba.
Ah, yes. Good. So a good time was had by all?
Yeah, good time was had by all. Had drinks were pretty expensive. I don't know if I can get reimbursed for about 15 beers.
That's big no.
$7 a piece. I only had 2 beers. My limit, that's all I could drink. But once again, it was well attended by everybody. All the communities are
Nice.
out there supporting the San Jose region.
That's great.
Great, good. Anything else to report?
Yeah.
Councillor
Sorry, just quickly, The Spectator has not been in publication for years.
Okay.
The community newspaper, not the tabloid,
I call it
is the Express.
Okay, the Express. Okay, the Express. Thank you for your recollection of that. Okay, I also attended the 2-day course, the Economic Development Training in Duncan, Manitoba.
And how was that?
Oh, don't ask. It was overwhelming.
Yeah.
We did 4 modules in 2 days. And we touched on support for community economic development process. We collected and analyzing data and development plans. We talked about engaging various levels of government, like the provincial, the feds, municipal, for help, and they usually help all the time with the RMs. Hiring also an economic development officer, EDO, and their roles, which of course would cost money, and not too many of the communities have that right now at all because of lack of funds. We assess the community readiness. Are we ready? Can we do this now? We had organization structures, principles to establish, and we talked about the advantages and disadvantages of that also. So that was module 1. Module 2 was how the economy works. Prepared, they had presented a leaky bucket metaphor, which was quite interesting. And to fill the bucket, what we needed to do was grow our economy. We had to bring in businesses. We had to bring in affordable housing. Exports and goods and services, too much to in touch with us. Investments such as the bandstand, our markets, our festivals. Proper lagoons to meet our capacities of housing. The attractions, what attractions have we got to lure the people here besides the beach? And attracting younger people as well. They had the leaks in the bucket, which were people moving out of the area. No overnight accommodations, pretty well here at the beach. People shopping elsewhere, which of course most people do anyways because of the price, but we do suggest to support your local stores, retail stores. We have young people moving away as well. So that included number 2 module. We talked about understanding the local economy. We also did a data analysis of various areas. Module 3, we conversed about the strategies and actions such as the business development of your area, such as Riverton. Now they're building a new hotel. Okay, maybe something we can look at later on. I know years ago we had the train here, we had the dance hall, we attracted lots of people there. Today, not so much. We talked about sustainable development, community revitalization, the population development, tourism and culture. And I talked about this before, the different nationalities, like Steinbach has 27 to 29 different nationalities. And also the business development in Manitoba. Module 4, and the last one was the topic of governance responsibilities and powers. We talked about the municipal taxes and issues, the tax increment financing, the TIF, also the municipal budgeting, and Arborg supplied us with their budget for the year. So if you want to have a look at that.
It's on.
Land use planning, resources, and all it was very interesting. Turned on the lights quite a bit for myself. Again, I thought it was overwhelming. I'm not used to going to school again for 2 days in a row from 8:30 to 5 o'clock. Some of the days we got off at 4 o'clock, but some of them went after 4. So again, it was very interesting and it was well attended. That first module, though, I didn't really have to go to because we did that here at the Legion. But all in all, it was agreeable.
So looking at that condensed version of that, was there a particular module that you may feel that we should be looking at council collectively that may be of benefit?
Again, we've talked about this throughout the year. Our parking, our businesses, how we lure people to this town besides the beach area, besides the water.
Which module was that discussed with him? Sorry.
Module 2. But they did touch on going through different modules and, one running into the other one, like some aspects of 4 points. And again, we need this. We need, like I said, compared to where we were 50 years ago, although we are getting a lot of people now coming back here because of the COVID that is off now.
Yeah.
But we do need something for people to come here. As an example, if we had that fishing derby here that Gimli had, I'm sure that hotel would be packed. And Gimli's still paying for that hotel, as they borrowed the money, and they're still paying some $50,000 a year. So I can't see, and if Riverton's getting something, why can't this beach area do something? Why can't we start bringing these people in here and doing something different? We need parking, we need businesses, and we don't have it.
Well, and that's part of the challenge is how do we attract businesses to this community? Because that's not something, council can't.
That's also, that came up, give them a tax break for businesses coming in here for the first year.
Right, but we're saying, council can't decide we're gonna open a hotel, right? We have to have businesses approaching us, and maybe at some point when things settle down a bit, we can go out and start knocking on some doors. I know, I was talking to someone and they said, your area is so beautiful. You guys would do amazing in the film industry. Get yourself a package together and send it to some of these producers, and you would have lots of film happening here. And the next question is, well, where will we house people? Where's the hotel going to be? Where can people sleep? So at some point, if council decides that that's something we want to look at, then we can certainly do so. But I do think it's something that Sharon and I have been talking about is having a meeting where the 5 or 6 of us sit down and talk about what are our priorities going to be in the next couple of years. We have a few things on the go right now, but is one of our priorities going to be trying to attract businesses to the town? And if so, what's that look like? And who do we approach? And how do we get that to happen? And do we have the infrastructure for it? And it just creates more questions, right?
Yeah. And they also stipulated that the governments are all, and they'll help you as much as they can. They give you grant money, et cetera. So it's just not a toss-away for them.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else attend anything that you want to report on? I went to the West Shore Community Foundation donor appreciation dinner back at the beginning of October. That was a month ago already. Which was really good. It was really wonderful meeting all the students who have gotten scholarships through the West Shore Foundation and some of the students that we've supported. It was great hearing all these students who just wanted to go out and conquer the world and do this great thing and do that great thing and going on to their studies at the university or the trade center or whatever. It was a nice evening. Anybody else? Okay.
Be it hereby resolved that correspondence be accepted as circulated or presented.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Gendron. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Jarvis. All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that council moves in camera at 8:26 p.m. to discuss matters that are in the preliminary stages and personnel matters. And be it further resolved that any matters discussed while in camera be held confidential until such time as discussed in open council.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Ford. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Kozlowski. All in favor? Carried. We take 5 minutes, folks?
She's not gonna shut it up.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. It was lovely to see you here again.
You had good suggestions. Winnipeg Beach just needs to.
Thank you.
That's,
Bring the train back.
yes, right.
I'll be the first one to ride it.
And
Actually,
all
I'll
the-
drive it.
And all the old rides and everything they used to have eons ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were the days.
Yep.
they were.
Have a good evening, folks. Can we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah. Smoke break.
Like up there. All right, we're gonna do this yet, right? Are we ready to go? Okay.
Be it hereby resolved that council moves out of camera at 9:04 PM and resumes the regular meeting of council.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Seconder, Councillor Kislowski. Sorry, my brain is going dead. All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that council adjourns the November 8th, 2023 special meeting at 9:04 PM.
Mover, please. Councillor Jarvis. Seconder, please. Somebody, Councillor Gendron. All in favor? Carried. And that, folks, is all she wrote.